Last week we did the alphabet. Today we're doing chapter 10. If you are not reading perfectly yet, that's okay. You have one more week to be able to read perfect. I'm just kidding. You have your whole life to learn to read perfectly, to iron out all the difficulties, and to be really honest with you, if it weren't for word recognition, you probably wouldn't be able to read English very quickly. Let me give you an example of this. Are they being loud outside? Let me give you an example of this. We can read fairly quickly in English as we get older, not because we recognize the letters faster. It's because we recognize the words. I'm pretty sure that's a fact. So you start to recognize, oh, this set of letters is the word and. So you're no longer sounding out and. You just know the word. The same thing happens in any language. So if you notice, like a priest or a shamash or somebody that's been reading Chaldean for a long time, reading a lot faster than you, it's not because there's something wrong with you and you're just dumb and you need to give up and that's the end of the world. Don't be dramatic. I know you're Chaldean, but it's okay. Tone down the drama, khassa, okay? It's because you're still reading word, letter, vowel, letter, vowel, letter, vowel, sounding it out. They are, just because they've been doing it longer, they're recognizing words. And that's why some people can read faster than others, okay? However, you're never going to get to the point where you're recognizing words if you don't sound out little by little, sound by sound, and as carefully as you can, okay? So it's okay, be patient with yourself, read slowly. It's not the end of the world. Good? Okay. There was one question that somebody asked right before class about the pronunciation of alap at the end of a word. For example, just go to page 29. Page 29, a little bit before where we are. And you see in the vocabulary words, there's the word for roof on the right column, top of the right column. You see roof. Roof as in the rooftop of a house. The way you say that is gare. Everyone say gare. Now, if you were paying attention at the beginning of last week, and I said the letter alap is something like the letter A, and you stopped listening then, you would say, well, this looks like it's gare a. And you think that the alap at the end is supposed to be pronounced. Later in the class last week, I said, alap is kind of like an A, but not really. It's more like a vowel holder. Okay? Alap is not by itself pronounced. So at the end of a noun, and at the end of basically every noun, you will see an alap there. So gare, that alap is not pronounced at all. It's just there mostly to mark the end of a word. As you're writing, and they would just sort of write the word and then end it with an alap, as if to say, that's the end of this word, let's go on to the next one. That's the one way to understand the sort of silent alap at the end of a noun. Okay, so that's good. That was one question that we had earlier today. So let's jump into chapter 10. Now, I will say this, it will not hurt you at all as you're learning the language to start memorizing vocabulary. That's going to help you. There's not really any knowing a language without knowing the words of the language. How to memorize vocabulary, I'll give you a couple of tips right now. One, don't stress out about it. You're not going to learn something by force. Okay, your brain is not like a rock that you just keep, the harder you hit it, the more it's going to crack. It's not going to work that way. If anything, your brain's going to harden more. You're going to learn less the meaner you are to yourself. And I've watched people do what I do internally, and they have their flashcards, and they'll look at the front of the card, and it's a word, and like, oh, is it this? And they go like this. Oh, and I'm so stupid. I'm such a loser. And they just beat themselves up. Does everybody else do that, or just me? Some other people do that? That's a waste of your time. You're not failing to learn it because you're a loser or because you're stupid. You're just human. That's just the way things are. And the more frustrated you get, it's like closing your eyes. You're not going to see what's outside of you. It's going to be harder for you to learn. So have a little mercy on yourself. Say, okay, let's try this again. How do you actually learn vocab words? Sound them out Imagine the thing. So gare, let's take that as a vocab word. Gare, gare. You sort of say the sound, enjoy the sound as it comes out of your, like watch the shape of your mouth. Imagine a rooftop. Get everything in your body involved. I don't know if there's something that has to do with the smell. If you were trying to learn the word for an apple, chabusha, get an actual apple and smell it while you're saying the word. It's not this purely intellectual process that you just have to close your eyes and by some force of the pure spiritual will get yourself to learn something. You learn something in your physical brain, which means your entire body is involved. Get your body involved. And when it comes to, I'm going to give you tips on when we're looking at words like I, you, he, she, they, things like that, you know, the infamous pronouns that are so famous today. When you learn those, I would recommend drawing pictures of one person and then two people, and then you can point to them. The more you do that, the more you're going to absorb these vocab words, okay? That's one. Second, a lot of the work that went into this book was picking vocabulary words for each chapter. So very simple ones are at the beginning, and they're sort of limited by which letters are in that chapter. But as the chapters go on, we put some really useful common words in the vocab. So if you've got the alphabet down pretty well, chapter 10 is going to be very simple. That's why I'm kind of relaxed today. I'm not rushing like I did last week. And you feel like, okay, I can breathe a little. I've got a little extra time for my 10, 20 minutes a day that I'm studying. Go back, start to learn some of the vocab from the earlier chapters. A lot of it is stuff you know. You know that Baba is father. You know that Yimma is mother. So learn some of the other ones. Third, finally, tip on learning vocabulary. As you're working and memorizing, and when you learn a word, and you consistently remember what that word is, put it in another pile. Stop studying something you already know. So be nice to yourself, but don't be that nice. So let's say you have flashcards and you've written them out, and you always get the same word right. Okay, put it aside. Focus on the ones you don't know. Don't beat yourself up when you don't know them, but keep working on those. And then hopefully that pile gets smaller. You go to the next chapter, add some more cards. Then every couple of weeks or a month or so, go back to the full pile of all your vocab, review just to make sure you still remember all of them. You're going to forget 30 to 50% of them no matter what. Relearn them. And I've heard somebody say, I don't know who said this, but some person said, you don't really learn something until you forget it 7 times. That's probably right. Yeah, I think it's right though. When you forget it 7 times and you learn it the 8th time, then it seems like it really settles. Good? Okay. Chapter 10. Page 32. Chapter 10, greetings and basic phrases. Section 1, leshana or language. Means literally tongue, but the word tongue also means language even in English. While there are many elements of the Chaldean language that are quite simple, other things need some explanation, just like any language. Don't get frustrated with this one as if English is that logical, alasas. English is a disaster of a language. And those of you who learned it as your second or third language know how weird and exceptional and complex and crazy English is. So I don't want to hear anything bad about Chaldean. Okay. For example, saying hello isn't as easy as it is in English. So it happens to be one of the words that's more complicated in Chaldean than it is in English. The idiom, the word idiom just means the way something is expressed in a language. The idiom in Chaldean is that the way to say hello to someone is to use the phrase, peace be with you. I think we have to say peace be with you. We're going to see how to say that in Chaldean. To greet somebody because we're such a peaceful people, right? I think it's the opposite. I think we're so chaotic that we constantly have to remind people to be peaceful. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Now, that being said, it is actually totally acceptable to greet somebody in Chaldean just by saying shlama. Everyone say shlama. That's plenty. If you want to say hi, you can just say that. Nobody's going to say, well, you're technically supposed to. I will tell you this. People have, they like to invent rules in Chaldean to make themselves sound smart. And they say, oh, in my village, we said it this way. That's great for your village. That's not universal. And all villages deserve respect. You don't get to tell me that I'm wrong. Father Andy said it's right. And I am the final authority. I'm not the final authority. But I probably know more than the guy that's arguing with you. And it's always a guy, by the way. Okay. So you can just say shlama. which just means peace, which is a way to say hello. Perfectly acceptable. It's a little bit more proper, more formal to add with you. But this makes things a little more complicated because there are 3 ways to say you in Chaldean. 1 when you're addressing a man, 1 when you're addressing a woman, and 1 when you're addressing more than one person. So when you say you, in English, the word you means any one of those possibilities. Singular, plural, masculine, feminine. In other languages, and in fact, even in English, sort of in earlier versions of English, we had the singular you. And that was what thee meant. Thee and thou was meant to address one person. And then ye or you was meant to address plural. What happened? I think what happened is when we address royalty, when you address a king or a queen or a princess, you always use the plural. Because that's sort of like they represent the entire country, so we speak to them in the plural, right? Then a peasant guy decided to call his girlfriend like you as if she's royalty, because she's his little princess, right? And then the guy next door was like, well, my wife's mad at me now because I'm using the singular for her. So he started using the plural, so then everything became plural in English, and we just have you now. In Chaldean, there's still a distinction between singular and plural, and between masculine and feminine. If you want to, so here's the endings. Everyone say uch. That's the ending that's applied to a singular masculine person. If you want to address one woman, it's ach. That makes sense, right? That when you're addressing a woman, you say ach. Okay? What? And if you want to address plural, any group of people, if it's all men, if it's all women, if it's a mix, if it's just 2 people, you say ochun. Good. So piecing together what we know, we take the word for peace, shlama, and then the word for upon, which is il, and then you add whichever ending above matches the person or people you're addressing. So if you want to say, if you're walking in and there's just one guy, everyone say shlama illuch. That's it. If it's one girl, everyone say shlama illach. And if it's a group of people of any kind, you say shlama illochun. Now, there are some dialects that very acceptably will kind of really stress the vowel in a different way. They'll say shlama illochun, perfectly valid. There's nothing wrong with that. Speak the way your grandma speaks. Let her understand you. You understand her, but don't criticize how other villages do their thing. So, repeat after me. Shlama illuch. Shlama illach. Shlama illochun. Okay? All of this is just to say hello. But the typical response is pretty simple. It doesn't really change. It doesn't change no matter who you're talking to. So if somebody says hello, shlama illoch, shlama illach, shlama illochun, you reply, the typical response is pshena uptawatha. That means in peace and blessings. Everyone say pshena uptawatha. Now let's sound it out. And again, some villages will stress this a little bit more than others. Everyone say pshena, or as it's written, pshena. Perfectly valid. Pshena, and then there's u. Pshena u btawatha. So everyone say u btawatha. So what does that mean? So pshena is in peace, and the wow is and. That's your first vocab word. Wow, the letter u, the o, means and. And then the letter beth means in. Beth means in. So in peace and in blessings or good things. Ta'awatha. Good? We'll be able to break down words little by little as the chapters go by. So far so good? Shena ta'awatha. Okay. Or you could just repeat what they say to you. So if it's one guy walking into a room and he says to all of you, Shlama illochon, you can just reply, Shlama illuch, because there's just one of him. That's perfectly fine. There's lots of variation here. If you want to say, hey, welcome, I'm glad you're here. I don't know why you would say that to somebody, but let's say you're glad they're there. Saying welcome works in the same way. The English word welcome, think of the English word welcome. I'm teaching you English free of charge. That's how nice I am. Welcome means you have come well. Welcome. I don't usually think about English breaking things down that way, but that's what it means. Welcome. So that means you have come well. Good job getting here. That's kind of what it means. So Chaldean uses a similar concept, but we use the word for peace in greetings. Instead of saying that the person who has arrived has come well, we say he's come in peace. So just like above, you're going to change the ending depending on who you're talking to. So they sat down. This is usually sort of the typical practice. They walk in, Shalom Alochen, you say Pshen Aptawatha. Once they sit down, the guy sits down, you say Pshen Etheluch. Welcome. If it's one guy. If it's a woman, Pshen Ethelach. And then if it's a group, Pshen Etheluchon. Okay? What is it? So I have a joke. When I walk into a room, I say Pshen Etheli. Just to be obnoxious. Don't do that, it's my joke. Okay. And then there's a funny practice of I think the really formal way to do this is when somebody walks in, you stand up to greet them. I think we teach our kids, when we teach them to be polite, you stand up and say hi to the person that's coming. You don't just stay on your phone. You stop what you're doing, you greet the person, you acknowledge their presence. If you really want to be respectful, you stand up and you go shake their hand, kiss them on the cheeks, whatever. Now it's kind of minimized when there's a large group of people. Instead of every single person getting up and greeting, they do this funny thing. They're sort of sitting, and then when they say Pshen Etheluch, they kind of get up 2 inches off the seat. Pshen Etheluch. It's I'm kind of getting up, right? Okay. Anyway, whatever. That's fine. So everyone say Pshen Etheluch. Pshen Ethelach. Pshen Etheluchon. Good? Then, when you respond to that, all that is just to say, this is when people are walking in. You respond to that by saying, peace to you too. Peace yourself. Again, you'd use one of the same 3 endings. Now, there's different ways to say this. You're saying one, I have another one in the book. Everyone say, Pshena Gyanuch, which literally just means peace yourself. Gyana is a self or a soul. So peace to you as well, but peace to yourself as well. Everyone say, Pshena Gyanuch, Pshena Gyanach, Pshena Gyanochon. You will also very often hear what they were saying over here, somebody, Pshenep Gauch, which means peace inside you. It's kind of violent, but that's fine. It's okay to be violent sometimes. So far, so let's practice. Everyone say Shlama Eluch. Pshena Theluch. Pshena Gyanuch. That's one guy talking to another guy. Then, now it's 2 girls. Shlama Ellach. Pshena Thelach. Pshena Gyanach. It's a good way to sort of practice, to learn this is to practice going back and forth kind of in a conversation. There is a conversation at the end of this chapter we'll work through. And these I think will be helpful to kind of help you absorb the material. Okay. So far there's lots of peace all over the place. Shena, Shena, Shena. That's great. It's also, so Chaldean is a very peaceful language. It's also a very religious language. The closest equivalent to saying please is to say, this funny phrase, God forgive you. Everyone say, Alaha shawakluch. That's how you say please. If you want the salt, you have to have God's forgiveness involved for that person to get salt. Allah shawakluch, and then you ask to have the salt passed. Everyone say, Allah shawakluch. If you're speaking to a woman, Allah shawaklach. If you're speaking to a group, Allah shawaklochon. Okay? There's a lot going on just to say please. Shwaka either means forgive or it means abandon. Those are the 2 things. I don't think you're saying, may God abandon you, give me the salt. I know that this means please. I'm aware of that. I don't know, if you want to analyze it as may God keep you, shawakluch. I guess that's better than forgive you. I guess it's a little bit less sacramental. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. It can mean that. You can also say, again, other villages, dialects will say, another way to say please is in basmaluch. I would say in basmaluch. It's not written down. I'm just saying that. Or you can say in basmalach and in basmalochon, if it pleases you. And I think that's where the word please comes from. If it pleases you, pass me the salt. Well, it doesn't please me, but here's the freaking salt. Get out of here. Whatever. Okay. So really the thing that's sort of, that you want to stress in this chapter is these endings. Och, ach, ochon. Saying thank you, next page, works the same way, and it's literally translated, may your soul be pleased. Thank you. Basma gyanuch. May your soul be happy. Basma gyanach. Basma gyanochon. Simple enough. If you want to say goodbye, well, yeah, you can say posh bishlama, pushu bishlam, but I'm saving that. Oh, yeah, that's later. I'm saving that for later. But there's a. Let's look at it in English. Goodbye. At the time of Shakespeare, maybe a little bit before him, goodbye was said, God be with you. That's what goodbye was. God be with you. God be with you. And then they would say it faster and faster until it became goodbye. The word goodbye means God be with you. Its root is God be with you. So we say the same thing. Alaha emmuch. Alaha emmach. Alaha emmochon. God be with you. The second way to say goodbye is what you guys were saying. Remain in peace. Here are the endings you learned don't work. Now we have a different set of endings. It's the imperative endings, which we're not going to learn in the grammar until much later. So, go to the top one. If you're speaking to one person, everyone say posh bishlama. Same for masculine and feminine. Posh bishlama, posh bishlama. If you're speaking to a group of people, say pushu bishlama. Everyone say posh bishlama, pushu bishlama. Good? Let's work through this conversation on the right on page 35. The conversations given in each chapter are meant to be challenging. These are meant to be challenging. There are new words that you don't know. Look them up in the back of the book. I'm not going to spoon feed you this. You're all mostly adults except for the ones that are children. So this is a conversation between an imaginary person named Miriam and an imaginary person named Dawid. So Miriam says, repeat after me, Shlama illuch Dawid. Dawid answers, Shlama illach Miriam. Where do we hear that before? Miriam says, Dich iwit. We don't know those words yet. I'm throwing you into the pool and telling you learn how to swim. That's how you learn a language. And if you panic, that's fine, panic. Then stop panicking and go back to learning. Dich or dech iwit. The yod is there if you want to pronounce it either way. Dawid replies, Randa. Dich iwat ayat. And now you're panicking because there's a silent yod all over the place that you're not pronouncing. Continue to panic. I'll explain it later when you're older. Miriam replies, Rande. And now you're like, why does Miriam say Rande and Dawid says Randa? I'll explain when you're older. This is the way language works. It starts off as a mystery and then you learn as you go. And if you don't like that, not my problem. She says, Rande, Adi, Ila, Chaworthi, Katrina. Chaworthi, Katrina. Now, there's actually a really crazy secret about how you could, that'll help you understand what's going on here. The translation is 1 inch away on the left. So you see the translation and you see the Chaldean, and I'm telling you guys, here it is, figure it out for yourself. You know why? Because that's how you learn things. I had a hard time smiling there. Okay. So now we have a third character named Katrina. Dawid says, Pshena thelach Katrina. I imagine Katrina is like a really old lady. Katrina says, Pshena gyanuch Dawid. Dawid says, Maile shimma dbabach. Or, perfectly valid to say, Mile shimma dbabach. Okay? Katrina says, Shimma dbabi ile Yosep. Dbi Nagara. Which means the carpenter family. That's what it means.
Last one, please.
What?
What's the last one you said?
Dbi Nagara.
Di Nagano.
Dbi Nagara. Of the house of Nagara. Or the carpenter house. Dawid says, kedin randa. Baqiri bkefe. Now there's a lemma that we're not pronouncing and you're going to panic and then you're going to breathe and everything's going to be okay. I promise, Mandy. It's okay. I know you're panicking right now. Okay. Allah shawaq lach. Katrina says, Kam baqir illuk btawatha. Which is a total lie because she hasn't talked to him. Bas magyanuch. Allah ammukh Dawid. Posh bishlama. David replies, Pushu bishlama. Vocab, page 36. I have negative 1 minute to go. Everyone say il, upon. Im, with. Don't say the English part. Posh, remain. Randa, well. Shawaq, forgive. Shayna, peace. Shimma, name. Adi, this. Yes. You guys are terrible at this. Gyana, self or soul. Khawra, friend. Tauta, good as in goodness. Kefa, behalf. Nagara, carpenter. There's the endings. This is basically a summary of the chapter. There's your homework on page 37. Chaldean culture, when meeting someone new, page 37, it is polite to shake hands while introducing yourself. However, when greeting a friend or family member, they traditionally embrace and give a slight kiss on each cheek. When parting, the same ritual may be repeated. And I forgot to add, you have to do this for 45 minutes when you're leaving. Okay?